Okay, hi guys. My name is Chung, and today I'm going to be walking you through Webpack. It's going to be a very simple walkthrough. I'm just going to explain what Webpack does and how it relates to React. Before I start, I just want to say that Webpack is definitely a hard topic, especially for me, partially because it is a very powerful tool, and partially because the documentation isn't that great. So in the 10 minutes that we have today, we're just going to examine the real meat of it, again, how it relates to React and how it works. So two important questions that you should ask yourself when you're coding is, what exactly does this thing do, and why does it exist? So in the world of code, you can't answer these two questions, and you probably shouldn't be using it. So let's answer those questions for Webpack. So why does Webpack exist? It is a very powerful code bundler. So it takes your code, transforms it, bundles it, and returns a brand new version of your code. Specifically, it takes an entry file, and then it reads all the modules that are required recursively, and finally creates a single JS file with all the code in the right order. So what problems are Webpack solving? It basically minifies your code. I like to say it kind of cuts the fat away. It takes care of semicolons and white space. And some languages need to be translated before it's used, like CoffeeScript or Sass or JSX in this case. So it handles that. And basically, it's just a really cool tool that helps you transform your code wherever it's needed, and you could actually manually tell it where to put that transformation. So how does it work? If you think about the process that we talked about before, the notion of taking your code, transforming it in some way, and spitting it out, there are really three main steps and main things that Webpack needs to know. The first is the starting point of your application, or the root JavaScript file, what transformations to make on your code, and where it should save this new transform code. And we're going to go through each of these three things in 3 steps. So before anything, we will create a file which is going to contain our Webpack configurations, and it's usually named something like webpack.config.js, and it's usually located in the root directory of your project. So once that's made, you need to make sure that this file is exported, aka module that exports. And in this object, we're going to have a property of entry and a value which is an array, and that array holds strings, which points to the root JavaScript file. And you might be asking yourself, well, why is it an array instead of just a string? Well, Webpack allows you to have more than just one entry point. So using an array is usually a smarter way to approach it in case you do want to add more later down the line once your project gets larger. The second step is, now that we've told Webpack where to start, we need to tell it which transformations to make exactly. So we'll also make a modules property. You'll see in the next slide where a property called loaders will come in handy. Loaders will also be an array, and it is going to be where we put all our different loaders or transformations inside. And each loader themselves need 3 things. You'll notice this pattern that Webpack likes to come in 3s. The first is which file type to run on the specific transformations on. So for example, we don't want to run CSS transformations on a JavaScript file, and vice versa. Second, the directories that should be included or excluded from being transformed. So another example would be, you don't want to run our transformations on our node modules folder, which is that would be catastrophic. And last thing is that there needs to be a specific loader that we want to run. So this is what it looks like right now. Now, tying into the first thing a loader needs, you'll notice that in here I used CoffeeScript as an example, and that's where you'll see in the test section. So usually you'd use regex here, and then basically here we tell Webpack to run the coffee loader on all extensions that end in .coffee. The second thing a loader needs is the include or exclude. Over here, like I mentioned before, we want to exclude our node modules here. We don't want to tamper with that. And last but not least, on line 8, the last part is the loader itself. This tells Webpack what transformations to run on all the paths that match the test regex, and which are excluded, noted in the second portion. Also, to use the loader, you have to npm install the specific loader and then add a new object to that loader's array. So next, our third and last step is specifying where Webpack should output the new transformed code. And that'll be the third property, output, that you see up there. So output takes in two things, a file name and a path. So on line 12, the name of the file that Webpack is going to create, which contains our new transform code, will be called index_bundle.js. Line 13, path, is the specific directory where the new file name index bundle.js will be placed, and of course dir name, referencing the directory that the current executing script resides in. So now when Webpack runs, our code will be transformed and then will be referenced at a different location in our file system. In this case, our app/dis/index_bundle.js. So there's a Webpack tool that we could utilize that uses the pre-existing file as a template and creates a brand new index.html file. The plugin is called HTML-Webpack-plugin. And you'll need to npm install this before you use it. But now we just need to tell Webpack what we want to do with it. First, we need to create a new instance of the Webpack plugin, which is done on line 3 here. And we'll need to specify 3 things again. And first, we give it a template of what we want the newly created file to look like. So over here, the template points to our regular index.html file, which is located in our app directory. Second, we give it a file name, or what we want the new file creates to be called. So on line 5, we just wanted to keep the same name, index.html. And the third is inject. Here is where you specify where you'd like to inject that particular script, or in this case, the header or the body. So line 6 just simply says to inject it into the body of the HTML file. The Webpack plugin config is actually really smart. It's going to detect the file name of the output of the transform code, and then it's going to inject a script into the body of the newly created HTML file. Lastly, in our Webpack config, we add the HTML Webpack plugin config variable as an item in the array of plugins, as you see below on line 21. Basically, plugins are just used to add functionality typically related to bundles in Webpack. If a certain plugin is not built in, like the one we're using right now, you'll need to run npm install on it, just as a note. So now we can run Webpack from our command line. Now that you notice here, we have 2 different files. Inside our dist folder, we have index_bundle.js, index.html. The index bundle is the result of taking our entry code and running it through our loaders, and then the index.html was created by the plugin that you've seen before. So if you see here, I have the index.html in the app and the index.html in the dist on the left. And the only difference, if you notice here, is that the one in the dist folder that was created has a script tag pointing to that index bundle. So like I mentioned before, the only real magic here is that the Webpack plugin config is smart enough to detect the output file name of our newly created file for the Webpack. And it'll automatically add that script into the newly created HTML file. You could name it really anything you want. If you want it to be our super cool JS file, it'll be named super cool JS file. So no restrictions there. So another really important information is how to tell Webpack to run. If you've installed Webpack globally, then you have access to the Webpack command line. And in the root directory of your app, or wherever webpack.config.js is located, you can run Webpack from a terminal that will do things one at a time. The way we've been using it is using the watch method that will watch our files and re-execute Webpack whenever any of the files that Webpack is concerned with changes. Lastly, if you're wanting to ship to production, you can run Webpack-P, and that will run the normal transformations as well as minify your code, which Webpack is awesome for. This part, now that we sort of know what Webpack does, and now we're going to talk about how it relates to React. So Babel.js is actually a great tool for compiling your JavaScript. Webpack will tell you which transformations to make, and then Babel is the specific transformation itself for React. In terms of React, Babel is actually going to transform my JSX into actual JavaScript. And what's nice about Babel is that it can be used not just for this, but for anything. You can opt into future versions of JavaScript, like ES 2015, 2016, and use Babel to transform your future JavaScript to modern-day JavaScript so that the browser can understand it. So Babel is very modular, and I'm sure we've come across this. We need to install a few things initially. You could run npm install Babel core, Babel loader, and Babel preset React. Babel core is Babel itself, and Babel loader is the Webpack loader that we'll use. And Babel preset React is going to get the JSX to JS transformation going. And instead of adding a new loader to Webpack for each type of Babel transformation we want to make, we just give Webpack the single Babel loader that we installed. And then basically, that loader will look into a separate .babel RC file that we'll make for each Babel transformation. And in the same directory where the Webpack config file usually is, we'll have to make this .babel RC file. And I kind of see it as like a .ignore file. All it is it's an object with presets that points to React. So in other words, it instructs our Babel loader which Babel transformations to actually make. And right now, all we care about is the React transformation, which is why React will be the only one that'll be in this Babel RC file. And now, all we need to do is add the Babel loader, which is on line 18. So you'll notice in the code above, everything is exactly the same as you've seen in the previous slide with CoffeeScript. The only difference is that instead of the CoffeeScript loader, we're using the Babel loader. But yeah, I mean, that's Webpack. And I hope you get a better understanding of how Webpack works through this technique.